Good evening and welcome to Life on the Fast Lane. I'm Joe Spina along with Avram Lapidus.
Hello.
Did I get that right? I did it right,
You
huh?
nailed it, but good.
You know, one of the things that bothers me is that we have a tendency to do moral equivalencies, and I think that's fallacious, that there are no moral equivalencies per se. Let me make a point. As we speak, in the Middle East, it's on fire.
From all sides for a change. Usually it's just one area against another area. Now they're being surrounded.
And not too long ago,
Yeah.
when Trump was president, not only was it calm,
All quiet on the Western Front.
wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they brought peace accords to the region that nobody thought was possible. And now it's on fire. Now, here's where I have my problem. I want you to think about it. Hamas is firing, what did you tell me, thousands?
In a day, they can do 3,000 rockets a day. I like to know where the hell they're getting all these rockets from.
I'm going to tell you where they're going to get them from. And the folks out there better find out, better know too. It's a dirty little secret.
Is it Iran?
Of course. But wait a second. Who is funding Iran? Who's giving money to Iran, by the way? We are. They're using money. This is John Kerry, and remember the new relationship that Biden has with Iran? So we're releasing money to Iran. What's Iran doing with that money?
Well, first of all, Iran thinks that for sure Biden is going to renegotiate the contract that they had that Trump canceled out, and he probably will.
And what happens then?
And then it's going to be all hellfire. That's what's going to happen then.
Is Iran the #1 sponsor of terrorism in the world?
It's probably the only one.
And they're getting their money from who sent them 150 billion bucks?
You said it was John Kerry was responsible for that.
Well, at the time it was Obama, wasn't it? The Obama administration, and that was spearheaded by, and certainly Joe Biden had to know about it, right? So they're reinstituting a relationship with Iran.
See, what's happening now is people are testing to see how far they can go without being held accountable, because they know how far they could go with Donald Trump, and they couldn't go far at all.
That's right.
Now, but there's a new administration, they're testing the waters to see how soon before they're going to stop. You see, let me tell you something. This war has been going on now for close to 2 weeks. It's been reported about 10 days, but it started about 2 weeks ago. Normally, you would have started talking to them after the second day. It's been 2 weeks now. Not a word has been said, at least not publicly.
Except that Biden is telling Netanyahu to de-escalate.
And
that's a one-way street, you know.
No question about it. No question about it. But I don't think that Netanyahu is going to pay a lot of attention to him.
Should he?
No, of course not.
Okay. Here is a point made,
Because
not by me.
Every time you stop, you let them regroup. If you keep on going so they're totally knocked out, they can't regroup because there's nothing to regroup.
Very good. This is not my original thought, but it's certainly worth pondering. I'm going to throw it at you. Someone mentions, and I forget where I heard it, and it just stuck with me. You know, if Israel wanted to, they could wipe out Hamas and Palestine in about a millisecond. You understand that? They have the firepower.
They use very minor bombs.
They're very sensitive about not causing collateral damage. Okay, they're very sensitive about all of this stuff, but they don't do it. See, here's the point. They choose not to fight an all-out war. It's hard to say this, but they're fighting a humane war, if you understand me, right?
With one hand tied behind their back.
2 hands tied behind their back.
It's simple. It's really
now, is Hamas or the Palestinians doing the same?
Hell no.
Those rockets are going into Israel. They don't care whether those rockets hit civilians, collateral damage, or whatever, right? They're not military targets.
They send 100 at a time that go spraying all over the air, and wherever they land, they land.
So the Palestinians are out to kill Jews.
Well, you just found that out now?
No, I know that. Now, let me ask you something else. And this was brought, again, not that I thought about it. I'm parroting someone else's thought. Tell me whether you think this is accurate. The Palestinians have their headquarters, their command centers in churches, hospitals, and schools.
Especially in schools, because they know Israel won't bomb a school.
That's right. So do they have any respect for human life?
Of course not, none whatsoever.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about, moral equivalency. So tell me why Biden is telling Netanyahu to de-escalate. Tell me why he listens to Omar, the representative from Minnesota, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Presley from Massachusetts.
Oh, I can't stand that woman. I
But
can't.
wait a second, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan. How come? And Bernie Sanders, who happens to be Jewish, by the way.
Not really, no.
You know, you're right about that. He isn't. He
Okay,
certainly isn't.
Okay.
All right. So what's happening is, why are they taking the side of Palestine? Why are they saying that Israel is
The aggressor.
exactly? Now, here's the worst part, folks. I'm going to throw this at you. This offends me. And by the way, I'm not Jewish. I don't know whether you realize that or not.
I never knew that. I'm in shock.
I'm not.
I'm in shock.
Okay. Democratic Party, Democrats, 15.5%. Hear this, folks. 15.5% of Democrats blame Hamas for the violence.
It's much more than that.
No, listen to me. Of the Democrats, 15%, only 15% blame Hamas, meaning
Oh, I think
by translation,
excuse me.
85%
Yeah, you're
of the
right. I
Democrats
was thinking
blame Israel. Can you believe that one?
that's what they're talking about right now. You see,
Why is it the Jews, generally speaking, tend to vote Democrat?
because they're stupid.
I think you're right. You know, seriously, and I'm not Jewish. for that.
I'm not making a joke. I'm telling you, they're absolutely pathetically stupid. There's an old saying, which we don't talk about in public amongst Miss Company. A Jew's worst enemy is a Jew.
I'm starting to believe that, by the way.
I'm telling you.
I'm starting to believe
I grew
it.
up hearing that.
Now, look, under no circumstances can anybody justify and rationalize to me that Hamas and the Palestinians are the honest brokers in this conflict. There's no way that you can even justify it. Not with any intellectual or moral certitude, or if you have a fiber of sensibility, you can never say. Now, when someone is firing away thousands of rockets per day, by the way, which they're getting from Iran, the technology and the hardware from Iran.
What's amazing though is that Israel has a defense system. There's a technical.
Yeah, the Iron Dome.
Well, okay, but two men who lived in the Boston area, two elderly gentlemen, were the ones that perfected that for Israel. They did it, that is in their basement here in Boston. Then they moved to Israel. They called what they made Aliyah, and they gave everything they invented to Israel. That's where it came from. They have something else now, which when you shoot a rocket at Israel, another rocket goes up. That doesn't destroy it, turns it around to let it come back to where it came from.
Really?
Yeah.
That's that. I like
I
that.
saw a demonstration.
I
of
like that one.
But they're afraid to do. But here's why they don't use it, because they're coming from schools. On top of schools and hospitals, that's where the rockets are being launched.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that tells me that's cowardly. That's no respect for life. Now, let me ask you something. Are there any Jewish suicide bombers?
Not that I know of. Not that
Hey,
only when it's income tax time. There's a couple of them, okay? But hear me out for a second. And I heard this talked about many, many times. The military of Israel loved Yasser Arafat,
Okay.
which is why they never killed him. Don't you think they could have killed him?
Sure.
But they never did. You know why?
You tell me.
He's stupid. If he had the slightest bit of intelligence, he would have been killed right away.
Well, they went after John Bull.
It doesn't matter.
You know who John Bull was?
Who?
John Bull was the guy that made the big gun that could fire missiles from like 50 miles, 100 miles away. Yeah.
This is news to me.
Well, they got him pretty good. So, yeah, on that matter, it really troubles me the way we are lining up. I mean, the Biden administration and before the Biden administration, the Obama administration, were not friends of Israel.
Well, you see, but there's a reason behind it. The people that they think put them in office aren't behind Israel, so they go along with what they say.
Well, this is what kills me.
If someone's putting money in your pocket, are you going to tell them to go to hell?
Of course not.
Well, all right then.
Well, who are the people that are putting money in pocket? George Soros is certainly not Italian.
George Soros is is a classic example that you don't have to be smart to be rich. And when you're very wealthy, you can afford to be an idiot.
It's worse than that. He's evil.
Simply beyond belief. Simply beyond belief. I'm telling you, it's really at the same time, you say, what's going on right now is being publicly broadcast. This happens in Israel every day.
Yes.
This is nothing new, but it's being talked about. It's on the news. It's making the front page because it's selling papers.
I'm going to leave it with this thought, folks. Just remember this. Israel could wipe out Hamas, and for that matter, Iran, in about 15 minutes if they chose to. They have the firepower to do it.
Beyond the firepower.
And yet they don't. That tells you a lot, Avram.
Besides that, the whole world would turn against them in 2 seconds, and they can't afford to have.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, and why I'm fascinated by this whole thing. This thing called anti-Semitism is quite real. And all I do is listen to everybody else telling me how awful they have it, whether they're black, brown, pink, or yellow. And somehow or another, the anti-Semitism, I hate to say this, Avram, is actually, I think it's increasing on a world basis. I'm sad to say that I think it's getting worse when it shouldn't be.
It's never, ever gonna go away.
Precisely.
Okay.
And so why do I have to listen to all of this other stuff? Now, let me move, that allows me to move to something. The mayor of Chicago, are you familiar with her?
Yeah, I think she's part black, she's part Indian.
Native American, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's what she had to say.
About
And I
what?
need you to comment on it. I'm going to say it to you. She's only going to take interviews from people who are black or brown. That's it. Journalists who are black or brown. Now, if I said that, I'd be vilified all over the place. In other words, is she a racist?
Let me ask you a question. Why would she make a public statement like that?
She made it.
Why?
You tell me.
Because 99% of the people in the inner city of Chicago
are black.
Are black.
That's right.
99% of the inner people in Chicago have guns.
And
10-year-old kids play with real guns like I used to play with toy guns. That's number two. Number three, there's absolutely no education going on in the city of Chicago if you are in public school. Most teachers who teach in public schools were so glad of the pandemic because they didn't have to show up, that they got a break. Every time when they go to school, they're taking their life in their hands, okay? The day will come when this will evolve and it will turn against them. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it eventually will, because the inner cities are starting to change.
You're safer in Israel under attack from Hamas than you are in Chicago.
Oh, that's undoubtedly so. Okay.
Isn't that sad?
It's ridiculous.
And yet we're talking about what's happening in the Middle East is on fire. And we don't talk about not only the fire, the blowtorches taking place in inner city America.
You know who I feel sorry for? Really, I feel sorry today for police officers.
Without a doubt.
Because they don't know what to do anymore. They really don't know how to handle their job. They're totally afraid. If I say this, if I do this, if I do that, I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to be in trial. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose I'm going to lose my family, or I can get killed. And then if it's really very sad. They have a very, very dangerous job.
There is a civil rights attorney. His name is, I think it's Crum, a black man. He was on TV last night. He's out there in Ferguson. He's always
he represented George Floyd's family.
Exactly. And he said about the police last night, the quote was unbelievable. And I don't have it exact, so I'm not going to say it for fear that I may, but it was awful. What he said something about them with badges. They were like KKK or Gestapo's or Nazis.
Let me just say this to you. And
that's how we describe the cops.
I'm telling this to you first. There isn't a doubt in my mind within a year's time, if it takes that long, he is going to get a new trial.
You're talking about the guy from Minneapolis.
No doubt about it. He will get a new trial. And I'm
Well, it's
willing,
just-
and I'm willing to bet with you, a lot of the charges against him are gonna be thrown out the window.
Depending on what happens in the midterm elections, you know that, don't you?
I don't know if that's gonna be dependent, but it just might be. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So,
And
speaking of, go ahead.
And one of the first things, if I was handling his retrial again, I would say, whoever heard of a president after the verdict is landed to commend him? That's what Biden did.
I know
He
that.
got on national TV, that stupid jackass.
I want to say something else before we move on to the next topic. I noted that all of a sudden, the Attorney General of the state of New York is going after Donald Trump as a criminal enterprise. No longer is it civil, they're going after him as a criminal enterprise.
I thought they were going
What-
after
yeah,
Como.
Trump-
How come there's no talk about Como?
Forget about Como. What about the Bidens? That's a criminal enterprise in itself, and the Clintons. How about Al Sharpton? Al Sharpton owes the federal government back taxes in several $1 million. You understand that, don't you?
I don't think he's gonna pay it.
It doesn't have to because they're not coming after him. So in other words, when I talk about moral equivalencies, if you're a Republican, if you're a Trump guy, they go after you with knife, fork, acid, and everything else. But if you happen to be Hunter Biden, or for that matter, what about Bill Gates? Which we're going to get to in a second. I mean, understand something. Bill Gates was not a very nice man. Is not a very nice man.
But the thing that Bill Gates is able to escape from all this, he gives billions of dollars to charity. When you give Bill, they're even upset now that he's getting divorced because they're afraid that's going to rock the boat of him passing out money to charities.
The Pied Piper gave candy to little kids.
No question. No question. At the same time, it's amazing what you can do when you have that kind of wealth. There is definitely.
That's true, but look, I've often said, have you ever noticed how many 90-year-old billionaires there are? When they need a kidney or they need a lung, they get one in no time flat, don't they?
There's two different worlds, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. And when I'm saying to these folks out here, look, I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the nicest man in the world,
He's not,
but
but he was a good president.
he was a hell of a
And,
president.
and there was law and order.
That's simple. You know what? You can't be a nice guy. Machiavelli said that. The prince cannot be a nice guy or woman because nobody's going to listen to you. You know, a good parent is stern. A good parent uses a word that nobody wants to use anymore. No. The most powerful word and the best word you can have is no.
Reminds me of a joke I wrote about a dog that
No,
about a dog that thought his name was No, because his owner used to say no, 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 no. All right.
So, getting to Congress, you're not wearing a mask, by the way. Am I wearing a mask? No, folks. We're not. So, you've been vaccinated, correct?
Yeah.
So am I. And they said the CDC. Is it the CDC? They said, oh, by the way, if you got your shots, and you don't have to wear your mask indoor, outdoors, anywhere, right?
The CDC is really running the country.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
actually, they're not running it. They're the instrument that's being used to run the country.
And this gal that they have, a Jewish girl, Walensky, that's from here. I have a feeling she's going to eat these words she's saying.
Well, here's what's happening.
And I think she's following under political pressure too.
There's no, don't think. It's an absolute fact that she is. So Fauci's unbelievable. He's one of mine. So let me go down this road. I tried to walk in a Stop and Shop over in Swampscott the other day, because I thought we were emancipated. Well, oh, hell almost broke loose.
Are you walking without a mask?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm inoculated. I'm fine. I don't need to wear one. Oh no, company policy. So now all of a sudden you have company policy, you have Charlie Baker, you have everybody else saying, don't follow the science. They told me to follow the science.
See, that's another thing too. With the way they published everything, it is totally confusing. No one knows what to do, and no one knows what's even worse is not what to do. See, that's a story of life, my friend. In life, no one knows exactly what he's supposed to do, but one knows for guaranteed, without a shadow of a doubt, what he's not supposed to do. Okay, it's like almost innate inside your body.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. We did a show on this. No, as a matter of fact, I had to do a fill-in. And I looked it up, and the American Institute of Physics did extensive and exhaustive studies on the efficacy of masks. And the conclusion was that masks are useless. They don't protect either you from others or others from you. So, masks in fact, they said social distancing is no big deal. Outdoors, you're safe as the day is long. And yet they go against it. Now, the reason why I mentioned it is because don't you think Joe Biden was out the other day in Michigan in the fresh air and open space wearing a mask?
He was?
Yeah. All right. What's worse than that? Nancy Pelosi is fining representatives who don't wear masks at Congress. When the Congress is meeting.
Really?
Oh yeah, she's fining them $500 a clip.
Really?
Yeah. And some of them, and of course, the Republicans that are doing it. And what they're saying is that 75% of them have either been inoculated or they had the virus, which makes, if you have the virus, by the way, you're better protected than if you got the vaccine.
That's another thing too. That's what they say. I don't think there's anybody really as of right now, okay, that knows what's up or what's down.
With absolute certitude. I agree with
Let
you.
me just say this. It's going to take about 10 years to look back on this, if we're alive to look back on it 10 years from now, and then make some moral judgments.
Okay, but the point of the matter is this. If it's been determined that you're either asymptomatic, in other words, that you had the virus and now you get the antibodies in you, or you've been vaccinated, and they say that's fine, then why are they wearing masks when they get together? I mean, I can barely understand what they're saying to start with. I mean, a guy like me, hard of hearing, people with masks, I don't know what anybody's talking about.
Here again, they put a lot of fear into people. You can talk someone into doing
Well, that's the issue.
But by scaring them.
Well, isn't that the issue?
Well, yeah.
Well, I saw somebody the other day, a young, powerful man walking, an athlete type. He's got a double mask on. This is after the fact. Outdoors walking from, I said, what is wrong with this person?
Well, let me ask you a question. Supposing tomorrow someone gave you 2 seats to go to Fenway Park,
Yeah,
would you go?
absolutely.
You would go.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I myself would not go.
See, that's fear that's embedded in you,
Well,
and you're not a fearful type.
Well, let me ask you a question. Can you call it fear, or I just because I don't know?
Well, fear of the unknown is the greatest fear you can have.
Well, that's very true. Yes, you're okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, here we go. Ready?
Yeah.
Another one bites the dust. You like that?
Yeah.
Who am I talking about? Bill Gates. Another guy bites it. Another icon goes down the tubes on what?
Getting divorced?
Not that.
What?
Jeffrey Epstein fooling around, dealing with girls, improprieties, sexual proclivities, and the rest of it. See, all of this stuff is.
Are you telling me that Bill Gates is another Jeffrey Epstein?
That was his buddy. That's all coming out now.
Oh, is that right? Really?
Yeah, he went to see him all the time. This is after the fact. After he was charged as a felon, as a sexual predator, and he got out of jail, he became buddy with Jeffrey Epstein. Went to his mansion.
Well, let me say this to you. They asked Bill Clinton, do you know Jeffrey Epstein? He said, occasionally we've met. Then they found out that he was on his airplane over 100 times.
You're talking about Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
Well, there's a picture of Bill Clinton, a portrait of Bill Clinton in Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in Manhattan, in which he's wearing the blue dress, the famous blue dress.
Really?
Yeah, you never know about that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, and he's got red high heels on.
I tend not to look for these things, okay?
Well, the point of the matter is that we have a lot of depraved people now. Let me go one step further. I printed this up before you got here because I was amused by it to some level. Let me see if I got it here. Talk about vulgar and crude. Now, don't they always say that Donald Trump, he was a vulgarian, he was crude?
Well, he basically was.
Yeah. Okay, maybe he was.
But to be frank,
Wait a second.
That doesn't detract from him doing a good job.
According to a new book.
Yeah, a new book.
Now, they always talk about Obama as being a gentleman and the rest of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. According to a new book, Obama called Trump a madman, a racist, sexist pig, and an effing lunatic, and a correct MF.
Okay.
Pretty crude and pretty rough.
Well, you think he's the only one that you do that?
How about this one? In that same book, you're gonna love this one because you remembered it. First Lady Joe Biden,
Yeah.
she called. She said to Kamala Harris about Kamala Harris after Kamala Harris put the screws to Joe Biden debate. Remember, I was that little girl on the bus.
Yeah, right,
You remember that? Right?
Yeah,
You know what Joe Biden said to about Kamala Harris?
what?
That she can go F herself. All right, so these are people that we try to look up to. And when you catch them in the real world, look, you know that Donald Trump uses the F word, right?
I do too.
Yeah, so don't I. But do they use it fluent, you know?
That be frank.
But why do they say one is-
I'll look back at my life now. That's one of my favorite words.
Well, it has currency, doesn't it, at
Wait,
the right point?
When you say that word, you know what you're talking about.
The point I'm trying to make is how can you give a pass to one group when it's the pot and the kettle, they're the same color, aren't they? That's all I'm trying to say. So we don't deify. I mean, John Kennedy was not a very nice man.
John Kennedy in this day and age he would have been thrown out of office.
No kidding.
Seriously, he would have been thrown out of office.
Yeah.
Had he lived, the best thing that ever happened to him was he got killed in office.
You know, it's sad to say that there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah,
Well, you know, well, for example, he was betting simultaneous with Mama Giacana. It's the same girl,
yeah.
Elizabeth Campbell. Because people don't realize that Frank Sinatra had control of Peter Lawford. And Peter Lawford was married into the Kennedy family.
That was his brother-in-law.
That's right. And so Frank delivered a lot of goods to John Kennedy. In fact, many could say that he might have got him elected, you know, the Rat Pack and all that song again. Who knows? He's right. You're going to love this one. This is one of your favorites. There's a 900-year-old church in England called St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this one? So some of the figurines on the church,
Is that a crack?
they're falling apart and the rest of it. So they're going to have to replace them.
Restoration.
Did you ever hear of BAM? You know, thank you, ma'am. Slam, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
BAME. You know what that stands for?
What?
BAME.
No.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Black, Asian, minorities, and ethnic.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
that's a new phrase now.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, black.
I could go another 100 years, not need to know.
Now you know.
Okay, but okay. Thank you.
So all the statues
Yeah,
that are going to be replaced in
Yeah.
this 900-year-old church
yeah,
have to be BAM.
I see.
They have to be either black, Asian, minority, or other ethnics.
You know, strangely enough, I was thinking that this past year's Academy Awards, which I don't think anybody watched, you know, was a representative of not whether they made a good picture or not, but where they were from, where they came from. And I have a feeling that as time goes by, we've lost the meaning of what life is all about. Life is all about, it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from and how you did it, but you stood a fair chance if you put your nose to the grindstone and rose amongst the ranks and good things came your way. Not to have somebody take you, shove you down someone's throat and make them change.
Talking of life, I wonder if you people can see this symbol. Can they see the symbol right behind you? Isn't that the Jewish symbol for life?
Yeah, chai.
Chaim.
Chai. Chai means 18.
And it also is a salutation, is it not? A salute, a toast.
No, well,
Someone
l'chaim.
Right.
When it means to life, but when you translate from one language to another, you should go.
You lose it,
You could say in Hebrew with one word the whole paragraph.
You just went through a holiday season, huh?
Yeah, the Shavuos. It's when
What
God,
is it? Explain it to
it's
me.
when God gave the 10 Commandments to Moses on top of Mount Sinai.
That was Charlton Heston, wasn't it?
Yes, yes, it was.
He's Jewish?
No, no, he's not.
He wandered in the jungle, no, not the jungle, in the desert for 40 odd years.
Yeah.
Fascinating is that if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Moses somehow like a adopted son of a pharaoh?
Well, they had passed a law in when he was born because there were so many Jews in the country that the Pharaoh got scared. Should there be a war, they may side with the enemy.
Right.
So they passed a law, any new male Hebrew child being born had to be killed.
Right.
But Moses' mother couldn't do it. So she took straw, made a little basket, and put him in the basket and put him down the river. Pharaoh's daughter was taking a bath in the Nile and sees this basket, the baby. She knew right away who, what, if, and it was. Moses' sister, who was hiding with the mother, said I know a woman who's being a good, be able to take care of her. And he was raised amongst Pharaoh.
Yeah.
But his mother was his nurse.
A nurse?
Yeah, his mother was
A,
his
a wet nurse or a nurse?
a nurse.
I've always wondered about, can you see
That's how he was raised amongst.
the upper class, the pharaohs in the court. Can you imagine an ad on CNN or MSNBC, for pyramid workers, in which they said long hours, little pay, and sure death? And you know who were building those pyramids?
Us,
When you say us,
the Jews.
they built the pyramid.
Hell yes, they did.
Yeah. With what was the pay? Not too good,
I
right?
think you just shut up. That's what your pay was. They didn't kill you.
Yeah. So they turned around and Moses said, I don't think this is a good deal for my people, right?
Well, there's a whole story involved with that, but God spoke to him and said, I want you to go back into Egypt and I want you to get the Jewish people out of there. And I'm going to talk, and you go talk to Pharaoh and say, let the people go. But it says in the Bible, he hardened Pharaoh's heart. He said, no, you can't go. And it took 10 plagues from frogs in the water, from the Nile, which was holy to them, turning into blood, from cattle dying. It wasn't until he killed the firstborn of everybody, including Pharaoh, that he let them go.
Interesting.
And then when Pharaoh realized, oh my God, we got nobody here to do any of the work. So they went after them. That's when they went to the Red Sea. The Red Sea parted. The Jews went across the water because of both sides. Then when the Egyptians went in, the water came back.
Well, fascinating.
Very simple.
No, but it's interesting because the river turning red happens. It actually happens because there's a lot of red clay.
Yeah, right.
So the river does turn red and it resembles blood. So it may have been a poetic license, but nevertheless, it's factual. It's also factual that Moses was almost like Lewis and Clark. He was almost like a pathfinder, a Davy Crockett type. He knew his way around. So if you know a way around these swamps and marshlands and you lead your people through there without them sinking in the swamp, that works. So figuratively speaking, when the Egyptians, not knowing how to do it, got gobbled up in the swamplands.
Well, the thing of it is, though, that the Jews could have gotten to where they were going from Egypt to the promised land in about 2 weeks. Why did it take 40 years? Because God felt if I bring them there right away, they'll never appreciate what they're going to get.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's an interesting.
So we led them all around the mulberry bush.
Round and round you go
to get there. Okay.
Now, did you have to go to a Hebrew school?
Started when I'm about 4 years old.
You started when you were 4?
But let's say 5 at the most.
Now, how long did you have to go?
I think I'm still going. I think I'm still going.
So the point is,
I'm not used to it out here because there's really no synagogues here. When I lived in Brooklyn or in New York or in London, I was in synagogue every 7 days a week, in the morning and then a little later in the afternoon.
But when I went to school with a lot of at that time, the public schools were worth going to, and
that was a long time ago.
I'm not that young.
No, I'm not making a joke, but it's not that.
I realize that.
But it's not really funny. It's
at
terrible.
that time, Lynn had a lot of professionals living on Ocean Street and Nahant Street and places like that. Many of whom were Jewish.
Lynn had a huge Jewish population. How do you tell that? There were 10 kosher places to shop in Lynn to buy kosher meat. Now there's none.
I used to go to Bluestein's. My mother used to go.
This is way before my time. I got to schlep into Brookline.
My mother used to go make me go to, I couldn't believe them what my mother would do. My mother would snap the head of the chicken.
Yeah.
But
things changed.
That was then.
Things changed.
And by the way, generally speaking, for the better. generally speaking, in certain ways. So the holiday is over, and what else have I got here?
It ended last night at 9 o'clock.
So what happens during the holiday season?
You go to synagogue and you thank, and they read the 10 Commandments out loud from the Torah, and you got to stand up.
the Torah's law.
Yeah,
That would be like the catechism to the Catholics or something to that effect.
if you want to compare apples to oranges, yeah.
I had to go to religious school, they made it in the old days, and I don't know why they don't reinstitute. Folks, think about this. If you were, whatever your denomination was at that time, they would take the afternoon, I usually I think it was a Tuesday, so instead of going to class the last 2 or 3 periods, you were released and I had to go to St. Joseph's, in which the nun would have to teach, would do our religious classes. If you happen to be Jewish, you went to the synagogue or whatever.
My doctor, my chiropractor, his son graduated a couple of years ago from a Catholic school here. St. John's is it?
What was-
John? It's a Catholic school.
What's the name of it?
St. John's or something.
Yeah, St. John's Prep.
Yeah, St. John's Prep. So I said to the doctor one day, I said, how could you send a Jewish kid to a Catholic? I said, they told me that under no circumstances would they ever preach the Catholic religion to him. And when they had to take a religious class, it was completely watered down. And the more I find out about it, a lot of Jews, I think there are more Jews at that school
You know why?
than there are Catholic, because it's a good school,
It's a very good school.
okay?
When I went to Boston College,
But they actually told him, you have to take religion twice a week. It's going to be watered down. We're never going to put anything.
well, it's interesting you say that because I went to BC, and at BC, there were 2 requirements you had to make. One is you had to take a theology class,
Okay.
and secondly, you had to make a retreat.
A retreat.
Now, obviously, I didn't make either one of them. I could get away with it.
What's a retreat?
A retreat is you go away to it's like your, like your religious thing, you spend X amount of days.
You go away.
Well, you're not necessarily, you're supposed to go to church to listen to all
In
this.
other words, a retreat is another way of saying you separate yourself for a time period. from
Yeah,
the rest of the world.
you try to commune with God.
Okay. Okay.
So what happened to me is that, and what they did was they take spring break and they said, that's when you can make your retreat.
Okay.
Now, during spring break, I wasn't about to want to make a retreat. You get what I'm trying to say? I mean, I was tough enough
Right.
commuting as it was. So naturally, I try to slip and slide. Well, lo and behold, I get a phone call. I'm down in Georgia visiting my sister, and I get a phone call that I'm no longer welcome to Boston College in the fall for failure to make the retreat.
Really?
Which is a requirement,
So
really.
they took it seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
So now I have to get in touch with the provost and everybody else to see if I can cut a deal. I got a good Jewish lawyer, and they told me that if I made a retreat,
Yeah.
a certified retreat
Yeah.
that summer,
Right.
and then okay.
So you did it.
Yeah, but this is what happened. The
Okay.
only place I could go,
Is where?
a Trappist monastery in Conyers, Georgia. Now, a Trappist monastery in Conyers, Georgia
Yeah.
was more than a few days. It was minimum of a week.
Yeah.
You know anything about Trappists?
No, I don't.
They can't talk to each other.
I love it already. I know a few people we should send there permanently. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, my big evening was
What?
listen to Gregorian chants. I go down to listen to the priest and the monk. The food was good though. Now, this is a true story, folks. At that time,
The food was good?
oh, great. They make it all there. That's what they make their money. They make all types of food and they sell it.
Ah,
The smart guy, listen to this one. I loved it. The guy, they have a store. It's like a supermarket, Trappist monastery, Trappist, jams, jellies, breads, all kinds of good stuff. But the priest can't talk. So what happens is this guy, smart guy, who worked for the railroad for years, he retired, his wife died, now he's 65, he becomes a brother. So he now runs a shop for them. You get what I mean? Because you communicate. So now he's getting a ticket to heaven at the same time. The best social security thing you could think. I mean, a nice place to stay, good food, right? Great hours. So I'd go see him. I had nothing else I could do. We became friendly. But how's this one? At that time, Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris are vying to break Babe Ruth's home run record.
Right, that's 1961, I think.
Exactly. Know any of the best part?
What?
The priests in there didn't have any idea who Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris were. They have no news. The only way they get news is if there's a war. Someone thought, hey, the only reason why I knew there was planes because they saw them flying over. Can you believe it? This made, what do they call those Quakers, whatever they are, no, the ones up in Pennsylvania, the
Amish.
Amish. These guys were far more primitive than the Amish were.
I used to know a lot of Amish because they were in the furniture business. They actually manufactured furniture and they sold.
They make really good furniture.
Excellent quality, very good, very good.
By the way,
What?
I used to live in Ohio.
Yeah.
What do you think I lived in? I lived in Amish country.
Did you
There'd be
really?
little cots, there'd be a cot on the
You
highway.
know what's one of the most beautiful areas in the world, in this country is Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
They're gorgeous.
That's where the big enclave is.
Yeah.
And it's like I mean, they're very wealthy people. They're not like little schlubbers, you know?
Talk about good food. I'm telling you. You know, so it's fascinating. Life is, and you're right. If only we were to take the better quality, that little folks, listen to the guy, he knows what he's talking about. That little yicky yak you gave earlier about from here to there about life was perfect.
Well, yeah, that's what it is.
It's that simple, really.
Very simple.
Yeah. You told me your mother was tough as nails.
Not really, just that, you know, she tried to see to it that her goal in life was when she was no longer here, that you had a respectable life. Because there's no one to watch over you, that you should know how to manage. See, as crazy as I could get on my own, there's always like an invisible hand that pulls you back, so you can't really go over the mountain. Just as you're about to tip over, there's like,
It sounds like the Godfather to me.
oh, okay, really, that's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to.
And by the way, folks, you honor your mother by taking good care of her car that you inherited, right?
My mother did not drive until she was 70 years old.
You're kidding
I'm
me.
perfectly serious. My father said to her one day when they bought this place out here as a summer home, because they didn't want to go to the Cape because the traffic was terrible. So they bought this place here. And my father said, you know, God forbid there's an emergency or something, you really have to learn to drive. And I will buy and they used to go a lot of times in the wintertime to Hawaii. And they met the family Toyota. And strangely enough, their name is not Toyota with a TA at the end. It's DA, Toyota. Why they got, I don't know. So we had this car. And my father always bought Volvos because Volvos was a Swedish car. They never bothered anybody. That was his philosophy. I'm buying a car. American cars were terrible. And German cars, you couldn't buy not the Nazi car. So we bought a Swedish car. We got a Volvo. But he bought, the man from Toyota gave my father this particular car that I have here now in Hawaii. I mean, he paid him for it and we brought it over here. And it's going to be 31 years old now. I have replaced every single item in that car. Things I never heard of, I've replaced. And as of this moment in time, the only thing in that car that's old is me. Okay.
It's a gorgeous car. By the way, that Volvo story is a great story because there was a book.
It's the truth.
Well, let me tell you, there's a book.
My
Go ahead.
my teacher, the rabbi, his father was sent by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in Brooklyn, New York, before World War II to move to Sweden. He specifically sent him and his whole family to Sweden from Brooklyn. Why? He said, there's going to be a war and we're going to need you there to help Jews escape. And that's what he did. This is an unbelievable story. He risked his life for years helping Jews escape the Nazi regime. What happens? They finally moved to Boston. One night on a Friday night, walking through Franklin Park, he was murdered and they never caught the guy. And it destroyed my rabbi teacher, Mr. Zuber. He never got over it.
That's your next script.
I actually wrote a story about that.
Did you really?
Yes, it was done a long time ago.
You resurrected. That's a great story.
Okay, it's a true story.
I know that. That's why it's a great
But
story.
can you imagine all the time bringing people to the ocean, putting them on boats, covering them over so that they couldn't be seen and risking his life. Never had a problem, never even close to becoming a problem. Comes here to Boston on a Friday night. It's a Sabbath. You can't carry any money. Somebody robbed him. They said, I don't have any money. So we got mad and he killed him, and they never found the guy. Okay. And I wrote a screenplay. I'll show it to you.
I want to see it. It's just something to slip by. What is it that you can't have money on Friday?
You can't carry anything on you. You can only carry the keys to your house, but you have to have a separate thing hanging off your belt where you put the key on.
Why is that?
You're not supposed to carry anything, but you're supposed to be completely free of everything
On Friday?
on Friday and on Saturday.
Really?
The Sabbath now, because of the sun, starts very late, so the Sabbath doesn't come in on a Friday night until about almost 9 o'clock at night. It doesn't end until Saturday until almost 10 o'clock at night. When I lived in England, it didn't end until 12 o'clock at night
Yeah.
because the sun is further north. That was it. And I never met his father, but I know Mr. Zuber, who was my teacher, never got over it. Never, he was never the same.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Let me get back to the Volvo. I read a book called Shibumi. Shibumi is a great book. I think Malamat is that his name? Who's the author?
Melamad.
Yeah, he wrote it. Shibumi it's called. And the hero in Shibumi was an assassin, but he was a good assassin. He only killed bad people. Okay, international assassin. His mother was, I believe, she was an elite upper class with no money, European aristocracy, living in Shanghai pre-World War II. And she didn't want to get married, but she wanted a child, but she wanted to genetically have a special child. So she ended up having found a Russian Cossack nobleman that she looked at and gave the right genes.
You come in.
Exactly.
Okay.
So she has the kid, the war breaks out, the boy now she becomes a courtesan to the Japanese general imperial. She gets sent to China to learn this game called Go. He's highly educated, mathematical, a whole bit. But he drives a Volvo. And the reason why he drives a Volvo is because it's reliable. It always starts up, it's reliable. The thing you were talking about.
Back in those days, when it was owned by the Swedish government, basically, they would spend 10 years before they would bring a new model to the forefront. Now, a car company like General Motors has about 10 minutes.
Well, he said, he in the story, what's fascinating about the story, he was one of they threw him in jail a few times and gave him a few books. He could learn Basque, which apparently is a non-Indo-European language, from northern Spain and France. And he was fascinated with caves. What do they call those things hanging down from the caves? Like my fingers, and it begins with S. Skylights or something like that. But he loved caves. Go if you look at cave. Apparently Europe's loaded with caves.
Apparently.
With the Neanderthal man. But you should get, folks, it's a great read. It's called Shibumi.
Shibumi.
Yeah.
It's
That and Exodus. Don't forget to read Exodus. I always love that book. There's a lot of history and a lot to be learned from it. Are we up against the clock here, Ron?
Yes, sir, we are.
We are. Always a pleasure. How's life on that fast line for you?
Okay.
Not that bad.
No, I'm on the last 4 pages of a story I've been thinking about for years, and it's almost all typed up. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Mina when it's all completed to be the first person besides myself to actually read it, and then he'll tell me it's okay or it's not okay.
And by the way, anybody out there that needs advance tickets, we'll open in Broadway, New York.
Please God, your mouth to God's ears, as they say.
So,
all right.
Folks, enjoy the fast lane.
Be safe. Shalom.
I'm